Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for a Film Fanatic show. Today is going to be a dual movie review or reviews of two movies together. Two movies that I was really, really late to the game in seeing. And I have one of the films I did see when it came out, and I had a lot of mixed things about it, but then I saw it again fairly recently and was completely blown away by it. So, very excited about talking about both of these movies. And then another one, and these are all tied to the same franchise. And then another one I just recently bought and I had never seen before. I was, again, just totally blown away by it. So, yeah, you just never know what you will discover and what you see for the first time. And also, you change as a person, your opinions change, and a lot of the times when you watch a movie for the first time, obviously, I kind of base a lot of my reactions to films on just like my gut reaction, or just how you know, the initial watch, and it's based on just how you generally react, and but that being said, there's always those rare exceptions in situations where there could be other variables that you could be watching a certain film that you had heard a lot about or whatnot, and you have this real like you go into the movie with a real you know certain mindset or precondition of like how you think the movie's going to be, and you have certain expectations or whatnot, and it just because of that it can overshadow your experience, and that's a normal thing. There could be other variables too, but I have found when it's happened, it's always been one of those things of where I am like, whoa, okay, this is a whole different experience for me now. So I'll be talking about those things in a minute. And so I had mentioned a while back that I got a new setup here at my Film Fanatic headquarters here. I got well, it was probably trying to think. It was probably in believe it, yeah, it was in September, late September, early October. I got a new Blu-ray player, DVD player, and I got a new setup as far as my speaker setup. And I've had this one Blu-ray player for probably about 6 or 7 years. And again, it's a case of that whole thing of where people say, you know what, they don't make things like they used to, and I think that's really true because every time I have bought, newer equipment that has been made, like say fairly recently, the lifespan of that product does not last. I've had that happen with equipment, my electronic equipment, and when I've in the past when I've bought equipment, say 10 or 12 years ago, this stuff is still going strong and it works out really well. I had bought some Korg keyboard equipment a while back, and I had all kinds of problems. And also with the drum machine, or a series of drum machines that I bought in the fairly recent, you know, in a fairly recent period of time, and I've had all these problems with things kind of shit in the bed, but I noticed with things, older editions that I bought of those models, keyboards, drum machines, the shit lasts forever, and and I think it's a funny thing. Speaking of which, quick plug: this Friday we will be playing. We have a quantum show coming up this Friday, and we're going to be playing at this really awesome new venue that just opened called Hey Sailor, and it's in Searsport, Maine. I live here in Northport, and it's only about 20 minutes away. Very cool place. I've been there a few times to see music. I've had a couple of friends play gigs there, and I've been there a few times, and I've had a really great time going there. So we're going to be playing there. It's our first time with Quantum playing at the Starboard Lounge, which is the music venue at Hey Sailor. Really fabulous place. So this Friday at 7 o'clock, it's a free show. We'll be playing for a few hours. So come on by if you're around. So pretty excited about playing in this new space and our first time or making our debut here. So we'll see how things go, but very excited about it. So stay tuned for that. So anyway, I've had this Blu-ray player for about 7 or 8 years, and it's great. I was late to the game also with Blu-rays. I was really reluctant to get Blu-rays because I've been buying DVDs, for a very long time, and within that, I have like multiple copies of movies, so in different editions. Like for example, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. I have about 3 or 4 different versions of that on DVD. I have like 1 or 2 very standard versions, and then I have a collector's edition, and then I have um, a remastered edition that had come out, and then I also have a steelbook version of that film. So I was really reluctant to get it on Blu-ray because then that means I have to like buy another copy of the movie because I already have so many. But then eventually when I came to the world of Blu-ray, I really fell in love with it, and now it's without a doubt my favorite way to watch a movie. The quality is just superior. Blu-ray 4K and also like 2D or 3D. You can't get any better than that as far as the home experience. So I bought a Blu-ray player about 7 years ago now, and so I've been avidly buying Blu-rays and just totally in love with that format, and I noticed about a year or two ago and again I have tons of DVDs. I noticed around that time, it stopped playing DVDs. Some DVDs I could not watch at all in this old player. It just whenever I put the disc in, just wouldn't register, and it was a wicked pain in the ass. And then that started even it became a thing almost with Blu-rays of where I never had any problems really with it not playing Blu-rays, but became a frequent occurrence that even when I would put in a Blu-ray, I would have to sit around and kind of dick around with the controller because the disc wasn't registering at first. It would always play, but it would always be a little touch and go, and you would hear it go and it would catch, and then it would be clear sailing after that. And I never had any problems with Blu-rays before that started happening, but I never had a problem where the movie wouldn't play. And then finally, about up until a few months ago, I'd been buying a shit ton of movies this year, and mostly Blu-rays, but I still buy lots of DVDs. And there was a bunch of movies that I bought on DVD that I could not play at all, and I got some really good ones, and I was really frustrated. Movies that I had not seen or heard about, and all these kinds of things, couldn't even play them on my player, so it was really frustrating. And then I started having the case of where certain Blu-rays I bought were not playing on my player, so it was a little bit frustrating. My player and my system has always been great. I have a really nice setup with surround sound and a subwoofer. So then I started looking into trying to get a new Blu-ray player, and I got a new Blu-ray player. But then, because of where technology is and it keeps moving so fast, the system, the speaker system, was not compatible with this new player, or nor with this, and it wasn't compatible with the current TV I had, because they make things obsolete pretty quickly. So I had to make an upgrade, and then so what I ended up doing is I got this speaker for my DVD player, my new Blu-ray player, DVD player, and I had to get a new TV. But I got a really good deal on the TV, really cheap. It was actually my mom's TV. She had a couple of TVs, and it's a really good TV, just as good. And then it's a flat screen TV. And then I got this omnidirectional speaker, to go with the player, and I got a really good deal on that. But I was reluctant because I really love surround sound, and I felt, well, if I'm gonna just use, if everything sound wise is going to be centralized out of one speaker, it's not going to be immersive. I got the speaker, I got the setup, and then when I first got it, I was not really happy with it. I thought the sound was really good, but it was lacking that immersive experience. But then, after a week or so of watching Blu-rays on it, now I just think it's incredible. It's the best system I've ever had, and it's an interesting setup because it's an omnidirectional speaker, and so you're getting that panning and you're getting that Doppler effect, but it's all centralized in kind of one speaker. And it's the system's kind of modeled off of the Bose technology, where Bose has this really great technology. They were one of the first ones. They put out their version of a PA system quite a few years ago that really really great, and they always have put out great products. And what that it is basically, for setup wise, you barely have any speakers, but they're the way everything is set up, it's all omnidirectional, so you're getting all of these panning kinds of sequences of sound just within one speaker. And so it's pretty incredible, and it doesn't take up as much room. So now I think it's awesome, and I love it, and that's all I use now for Blu-rays. And I was gonna upgrade it, but then I'm like, no, what? This pretty much kicks ass. So I love it, and now I can watch DVDs, Blu-rays, and not have any problems with them with the movies not working. And the other cool thing is now that my other system still actually works with the speakers and my DVD player, my old DVD Blu-ray player, still works. It's a little bit fashnickety, but now I just use that as a home stereo. So I just use that to play music. So I kind of got the best of both worlds. So very, very happy with, uh, you know, uh, just changing some things up here because it was really needed. So one of the cool, for example, one of the great things I'm really looking forward to, because I had said that, I still buy lots of DVDs, and most of what I try to focus on is buying Blu-rays, but still buy lots of DVDs. And about a month ago, I was at Goodwill and I found this awesome DVD set, and it's basically, it's called Never Sleep Again, and it's a collection. It's a full part. It's like 3 hours long, and it's a documentary all about the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, which I love. And I have not done any reviews, or I have not talked about any of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but I'm a huge fan of that franchise, huge Freddy Krueger fan. So eventually, I'll be doing some shows on those movies. It's a really great franchise. I love Robert Englund. So, but I came across this at Goodwill, and this huge. I'm a huge Wes Craven fan too, and this is a huge documentary on all of the movies, and I couldn't play it. I couldn't play it. It's got. I mean, look at this shit. It's got 2 discs. There's like 3 or 4 hours of stuff on it, and I got it at Goodwill, and it's like super cheap, $10. And I think this is included on one of the box sets. I'm not totally sure, but there's a few different box sets out there of all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And I think on 1 or 2 editions, this is included in one of those editions. But I don't own a whole lot of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I do have them, a few on DVD. Eventually, Blu-ray, I will get them. I'm waiting for a good set to come out, and I haven't really come across it. But this was a steal, and I was just like, fuck yeah. But I was super bummed when I couldn't play this on my player because I've been wanting to see this, and it looks great. So, so very much looking forward to being able to watch this finally. So today's show is on one of my favorite franchises, or I should say one of my favorite films, and that is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The original, directed by Tobe Hooper, is one of my most beloved films. I've done shows. I think, multiple shows on that movie. I've kind of always been. I've had mixed feelings around the franchise itself. I love the first one more. It's easily one of my favorite movies of all time. It is personally, it's been one of my biggest inspirations. One of my biggest inspirations on my band Quantum. The whole aesthetic around that film. So, and I also love the sequel that Toby Hooper directed that came out afterwards, and it's an amazing movie. The rest of the films I've always had mixed bags. It's always been a mixed bag for me, and I've always been not a you know a lot of I've seen all of the movies, and I was never really never a big fan of them. I had a lot of issues with them. But today's show is going to be on two movies that one I rediscovered, uh, and I just totally now I'm just totally in love with it. And then another movie I saw in the franchise, which I was blown away by how much I loved it. And the first movie I'm going to talk about today is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. And I have a little bit of a strange history with this movie. So this movie came out in 2003, and it was directed by Marcus Nispel. Marcus Nispel has done a few remakes. He also did the reboot for the Friday the 13th franchise, which I actually really like that movie too. But I was, really reluctant to there being a remake. I remember when this movie came out in 2003, and I first saw it. I saw it, when it came out. I didn't see it in theater, and again, for me, anything coming up or coming after the original Texas and the sequel, but especially the original sequel, I have that movie. I hold that movie in such high regard, and everything for me is like pale in comparison, or has always been. So I was really reluctant. I did see it. I remember seeing the remake, and this movie was marketed as just a totally like new kind of take on the original. So I was really reluctant, and I saw it. I remember, and I there were things about the film that I liked, but then I also had a lot of issues with it, and I had a lot of mixed things. Overall, I didn't wasn't really a big fan of the film. It was a big deal. I remember when it came out. It made a lot of money. It got a lot of hype. A lot of people did really like it, and so. But I had all these mixed things about it. I felt like that the film was when I first saw it. I thought it like I'm a huge fan of gore and extreme violence in film, but for me, it's always got to be about the atmosphere first and foremost, and I have to care about the characters. And I felt like my initial reaction to the film was that this movie was, I'm also a big believer in like less is more. And I think that like the original Texas gets a bad rap for being a movie that a lot of people think that movie is so gory and so disgustingly violent, but it actually, when you actually watch that movie, it's really centered on the psychology of horror. You don't really see all that much as far as gore per se or extreme violence. It's just it's it's really steeped in just psychological terror. I think it has more. I think a movie that I often think of that I compare it to in some ways is like Silence of the Lambs, of where it's based on the psychology of that environment. And I feel like even though those movies are very different, it has similar things. And I like that film actually has a lot of restraint, and it was due to budget. But to me, at the end of the day, because you don't see everything, it is one of the most unsettling and truly one of the most terrifying movies ever made. And it also feels like a documentary. And I feel like because they didn't show everything, that's what makes that film so incredible. And I felt like, okay, this remake is good. There's some moments of it that are very cool, but it it swings in the other direction where now it does show much more of the violence, and it leaves less to the imagination. That was the problem I had with it. So fast forward many years later, many years later, and I was at Goodwill and I came across this version, and it was super cheap. I was kind of like, you know what? I've only seen this movie once, and it was super cheap, so I bought it. And then I watched it, and I was completely, uh, I had this complete 360 experience. But suddenly I was like, this movie is just amazing. It had everything that I want in a movie. It was super gritty. I love the gritty aspect of it. They even got the original cinematographer for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They even hired back Daniel Pearl, who was the original cinematographer for the original Texas. He also did the cinematography for this remake, and he's just amazing. I mean, he makes everything he does, especially with Texas. It's so gritty and grimy and dirty and nasty, and it feels like you're watching a documentary. And so I felt when I watched this movie again, and I've seen it about since I bought it, I have seen it about 2 or 3 times, and it totally has that same aesthetic. And obviously, it's the same cinematographer, Daniel Pearl, and I was just enamored with it. And the movie just has some truly scary and horrific moments. The gore is amazing, and I just totally fell in love with this movie. I think it's amazing. I think it's one of the best reboots ever. It's got the best of both worlds. It's modern. It's they're using some modern technology in it, but it's still all about the atmosphere, and it's still dirty and grimy and just nasty. And it to me, it just has so much of what made the first movie, the original, so incredible. And yet and they also did something really new and fresh, and it's got a level of suspense that I was blown away by. And now I regard this movie as being one of the best remakes ever, if not the best remake. It's just incredible. And I only have this movie on DVD, unfortunately, but this is a really good copy. There are some special features on here, not a lot. I do need to buy this on Blu-ray without a doubt. I've looked for it on Blu-ray and I have not come across it, which I'm really surprised because this movie was very popular. This movie really ignited the whole franchise again. A lot of, there's been a bunch of movies since then in the franchise, which I do want to revisit now that I've been converted to loving this film. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But this movie is just incredible. Like, it really is. And I was, again, enamored with it, blown away by it, had a complete, like, 360 change of mindset around this movie. Um, and, I've been, in my travels, like I said, I've been looking for this movie on Blu-ray, and I've been really surprised that I have not found that I haven't found it. I always come across Texas, the original, and Texas 2, and then there's a couple other ones that I always come across. But I'm surprised I have not been able to find this on Blu-ray. I know I could order it online, but you know, it is what it is. But I'm really happy that at least I own it, and this quality, the DVD of this quality, the DVD quality of this movie is actually really great. I haven't watched it on my new system, so I'm very excited to watch it. But it's great. It's fantastic. Arguably the best, if not the best, horror remake that's out there. And then just recently, last week, I was in, or I should say, yeah, last week, Sunday, I went to Goodwill, again, down in Rockland. The Goodwill in Rockland is awesome. They have such a great selection of used CDs and used Blu-rays. and used DVDs. And I've one of the things I've been really excited by going there. One of the things that I love about it, especially buying movies and being a collector, is there's so many movies that they have there that are unused. I bought Black Panther on Blu-ray, and I've bought a bunch of the Marvel movies on Blu-ray there. I've pretty much I've pretty much completed my Marvel collection through that shop. But most of the movies that I have bought there are like unused, and so they're still sealed. They haven't been touched, and they're super cheap. So that's even cooler because the quality's even better, and they have probably a longer lifespan. But on Sunday, I went down there and I bought a bunch of DVDs, and I bought some Blu-rays, and I came across another Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie which I've never seen, and I had heard pretty good things about it, but I had never seen it before, and that is the prequel to the remake of Texas, and that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. I had never seen this movie before, and it was super cheap, $4, and it looked like a really good quality DVD, so I bought it. And I watched this last night, and this movie's fucking awesome. Like, it's so damn good. It it's a different director, um, and Daniel Pearl is not the cinematographer. But the thing that they did so well with this movie was they took the exact aesthetic that they used and the world that they built with the remake, and they really used and utilized that world and that look for this movie. It has the same exact grimy, super dirty, raw, in your face kind of aesthetic. Which, to me, when I think of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's what I think of. I just think of just unhinged terror. Um, and I think, like, Leatherface has always been one of my favorite characters. The reason that I love his character so much, for me, he's probably, I don't know, it's a hard thing to say. You have your iconic monsters like Michael Myers, The Shape, of course, Jason Voorhees, obviously, Pinhead, Hellraiser, who I consider to be an iconic kind of more modern day horror figure. Um, Madman from Madman, the classic slasher film. He's an iconic figure. Freddy Krueger, obviously, and of course Leatherface. But to me, it's always hard to say. I'm a huge Friday the 13th fan, also, and I always, for the most part, I've always leaned towards, picking Jason Voorhees. But for me, at the end of the day, I have to say my favorite horror icon character is Leatherface. I just think he's so unhinged and so deranged. And he's one of those characters that's kind of based on real life monsters. His character and the story of Texas Chainsaw Massacre was inspired by the true life serial killer Ed Gein. Ed Gein, who was a serial killer who tortured and killed many people, but then he also made masks out of their flesh. A true life monster, truly and utterly terrifying. And he was a big source of inspiration for the creation of Leatherface. So it has that, whereas a lot of the other horror icons that I mentioned, those are pretty much all complete works of fiction and fantasy. But there's something about Leatherface, because there is that thing of where he is kind of based on a real life monster, or was greatly inspired by a real life monster. So it kind of puts it in a different light for me. And the other thing about Leatherface that I've always thought is such a I always felt like his character and his psychology and the information that you get about his character is so unsettling and he's so complicated because there's like the aspect of him where he's kind of androgynous. He he does at times as a character wear women's clothes. He's kind of androgynous. He he has that aesthetic also, and there's also the aesthetic of where on one part he is like this completely and utterly personification of pure insanity and terror, but also at the heart of it he is kind of this mentally retarded child who is just afraid and scared of everything. And so all of those elements make him this really complex horror character, and to me, almost makes him more frightening. So, and he's got all these different shades and colors and hues, and so I that's why I've kind of always been enamored with his character. And so the beginning is this movie right here. The beginning, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The beginning is a prequel of the reboot. And the other thing that's awesome is it's got all of the original cast members from that movie. And again, the tone, the aesthetic, everything is it's a the perfect continuation of that. And it's awesome. I was blown away by it. And it's brutal as fucking hell. Like it's and I think in the case of this film, it really is appropriate. I think it does more of the violence and the real graphic nature kind of come into fruition um, kind of in the second and third act of the film. But when the gore button is pushed, oh my god, it's brutal as all hell. Like it's super brutal. In some ways, more brutal than the reboot. Uh, just around the sheer violence. But it's so satisfying on that level, being a fan of gore. And again, the main thing that I love about horror films, for me, a horror film can have, you know, terrible acting. It can have, maybe a movie gets cut and edited too much or whatnot, or it could have just terrible direction. But if it has atmosphere where it's really so rich that you can kind of taste it, that's usually for me the deciding factor of why I will love that movie. This movie has so much atmosphere, and again, it's such a great continuation of what they already established. It's amazing. It's amazing, and I was blown away by it. And this is a really good, again, a really good DVD edition of it. I just watched it last night, and it's got some extra cool special features on it, which I'm really looking forward to watching. It's got a documentary on this movie, which I'm going to definitely check out. I'm very excited. I really want to watch both of these back to back. I mean, it's pretty gruesome time well spent, but man, they're awesome. And I was, again, I never seen this before, so I can't recommend both of these movies enough. They're just phenomenal. If you're a fan of the franchise, these are just incredible, just as good as the original. Of course, the original is so iconic, but these movies are just so kick ass. And the beginning is amazing. Really, really concise and really, really cohesive and great characters and amazing atmosphere. So I can't recommend these movies enough. And this film came out, the beginning came out in, I'm trying to see when it came out. Yeah, it came out in 2006. So it came out like 3 years after the reboot. But, oh man, amazing. Definitely, definitely check these out. So thanks again. This is Jason Dean, and we will see you next time. Peace.